Welcome to Tangent, the freeform podcast where my friends and I try our best to stay on topic, but ultimately fail every time. I'm your main host, Joe, aka Momo Iscariot, and without further ado, let's get into it. Hey guys, what's up? So you're tuning in. This is the first episode of my podcast, Tangent, and our first guest is Taylor, aka Taya Swaya. Am I saying that right?
Yes, Taya Swaya.
And she is my mutual and now friend from TikTok. We are both Avatar obsessed, and this is the Avatar Legend of Korra episode. So what do you want to get started on? Like, this is kind of like a free form podcast. If you think like Seinfeld, but in podcast form, that's this.
Well, yeah, we definitely will be going on a tangent just because, I like to ramble and I'm very into it. So for the most part, I was thinking we start off with the bases, which is like the characters and their development in their own bending style and what it really like means to them, like why that specific personality trait was like selected for their bending style as well.
Yeah, because I think we are on the same page that like Korra, if you compare Korra and Aang, like we both prefer Korra to Aang, but we might have different reasons for that. Like, what is your reason for preferring Korra to Aang?
Well, like for Korra, she like moves on her own accord. If she feels like strongly gravitated to something, she's gonna go. Whereas like, Aang went wherever the breeze took him. It didn't really matter. He was like, yeah, let's go on an adventure. Let's like go penguin sledding. Let's go see the air nomadic temples that have like nothing to do with my training. And Korra, she was like stuck on a compound pretty much in the Southern Water Tribe, I believe, for like majority of her life, mastering like 3 of the elements there before she even went to Republic City to go learn from Tenzin. She wasn't even supposed to leave. She was supposed to still be in her bubble, and so she's very sheltered in a way where Aang is more or less innocent, but Korra's very strong-willed, passionate avatar, and she's finally kind of off on her own without like, all these rules and whatever. And she's just kind of trying to figure out like who she actually is as a person, a woman, an avatar, definitely, because if you're just in this compound for majority of your life, training, and then pretty much like your first few weeks in Republic City, out in the real world, people are saying, we don't need you.
Yeah, that's like a big thing. That's a big thing in like Korra's reality, is that it's very clear that like her, well, not her society, but the Avatar universe itself is like moving towards a space where they don't need the Avatar anymore. And she's kind of has to grow through that as well.
Yeah, because, and same coin, whenever Aang was in that iceberg, a lot of people weren't really on the Avatar side then either. They come across quite a few people who have ill will, but definitely there were a lot more villains in The Legend of Korra, which I actually really enjoyed because it was like not just one big boss that, she's jerking around training like for 3 books before they even got one episode in.
Like, I think that's definitely something that The Legend of Korra has over, like, Avatar, or The Last Airbender, because, like, their villains just had depth, whereas in ATLA, like, Ozai was just a bad guy. Like, that was his whole thing. He was just evil. There was no explanation to it.
The Phoenix King, period. He, like, I don't even know what his game plan would have been after he, like, actually took over like the Earth Kingdom.
It didn't really seem like there was a plan. It was more like, that's just what we're gonna do. We're just going to take over the world. Like their whole thing was world domination. I think the only thing that would have stopped them would be to basically take out all of the other benders from other tribes, not other tribes, but like other nations, until it like reverted to the Fire Nation. and then they just be like, well, the Avatar is one of us now, so we don't have to worry. If it even got that far, but like it couldn't get that far.
If they took away all the different avatars up until the point where it was in the Fire Nation, and then they just made sure that nobody else could like bend outside of like the Fire Nation, like think about it, that is kind of like exactly what Amon wanted to do, like except for he would have been the only bender left, and he would have been a bloodbender. Who would have stopped him? Like there's no checks or balances on that. Exactly.
And if you actually look at it, no Avatar has ever like defeated a bloodbender. The only person that we've seen completely defeat one is Katara, and she's not even an Avatar. She was just like a regular waterbender. She's the best one in the world, but she was just like a regular person.
The one scene with Aang, whenever he's taking out, I believe it's like Amon's father's bloodbending capabilities.
Yeah.
You know, he does like snap out of it, but they never specifically go into whether or not, you know, like Aang was bloodbending himself against him.
I don't think it was that. I think it was just the power of the Avatar state. That was really it. Like that's kind of what we chalk up the power to.
Energy bending going on.
Like the Avatar state is supposed to be like, well, it's supposed to be the most powerful state there, but we later find out by like season 2, it's not actually as powerful as we think it is. Because like that's when we get the whole backstory for Rava and realize that she isn't as powerful as we thought she was.
Oh yeah, she's a small being.
But now she's a lot bigger. So she's a lot powerful now.
You know, I think about that a lot. You know how whenever your computer has a lot of files on it and stuff, and how it starts to lag a little bit. You clear out those files, you troubleshoot. It just runs a lot more smoother, faster, better. Like, people
you just took out the trash. You can't say that. People will get so mad.
I don't care. They can fight me, honestly, because it's like, okay, besides Kyoshi and Aang, who do they really care about, you know?
No comment.
Definitely not.
No comment.
I don't ever hear anybody saying, like, Avatar Roku, you know?
Like, honestly, like, no one gives a crap about Avatar Roku. Okay, I have thoughts about Avatar Roku.
Name more than 5.
I have to speak on Avatar Roku because I do not like this man. I don't like him. And how people were just like, oh, he was like lava bending. No, he was not. If you watch that scene, he couldn't lava bend. He was earth bending and like redirecting the lava, but he couldn't actually magma bend. He couldn't do that. Like that's something we didn't even see until we finally got to Gazan. And that's when we learned that lava bending was a thing. Avatar Roku could not lava bend. He was a little bitch boy. I do not like this man.
I honestly think that, you know, as soon as Bolin saw somebody else lava bending, he was like, let me try.
He was just like, you know what? If we die, we die, but at least I tried.
He was feeling for the earth, you know. You can kind of tell that, but some people will say, you know, oh, it's because they have a fire bending mother and an earth bending father, and that's why he could do it. And I was like, that doesn't make any fucking sense, but all right.
Yeah, because if that's the case, like I would like to think that was the case, but for that to be true, Mako would have to be able to lava bend as well because he's half earthbender and he can't. I don't know. Like I don't understand
like Boomy, you know? Boomy, he
You're right.
had 2 bending parents and he was still born without bending capabilities.
That shouldn't have been able to be possible. Like by their logic that like all airbenders have airbending like children, then there shouldn't have been a non-bending child there.
Yeah. And 100 years is honestly a really long time as well for Avatar The Last Airbender. So think about it. The airbenders who lived in private, you know, they went underground, they assimilated to the other tribes' culture and everything, and they kind of like kept it hidden, and they didn't teach their kids how to airbend.
I feel like that's a lot more possible.
They wouldn't think anything of it,
Because I can't see how it's possible that every single air nomad lived in the air temples. Like every single one of them lived in one of the temples. Like nobody ever left for any reason.
Especially whenever they're able to fly. Like,
yeah, like you can exit. Like, what is it? Isn't Kyoshi's mom an air nomad? So that means she was able to leave the air nomad compound to have a child and raise her, or assuming that she was raised by her mom.
I don't know. Airbending parents do the worst, honestly.
I mean, like they're raised not to be parents, so I don't see why they would be good parents. They have no like mental schema for that.
Yeah,
So I
they're
guess
like,
that's
I
like
can't
this
have
is a
any
transition
connection.
to the like Aang's parenting style, which I along with a lot of people understand the fact that he wasn't a good dad because of this. We all understand the fact that yes, he decided he was now tasked to bring back the air nomad culture. But like you had two other children that also are half air nomad, but he didn't treat them with the same respect because they couldn't airbend. Like obviously they were told some stories about air nomad culture because Kaya had like reminisced about like, oh, remember when dad told us that really boring story about the guy that didn't eat or something? So obviously he told them some stories, but he didn't actually like teach them their culture like he taught Tenzin. Like
Yeah,
I don't understand how like riding elephant koi has anything to do with airbending because it doesn't. That has nothing to do with airbending.
You're just kind of like, as a mixed child, I feel like you should have at least taught them their culture and not been like, oh, you don't look like that or you don't bend like that. So,
like basically, I don't think he meant to do this at all, but he sent the message that you guys aren't as important to me because you can't airbend. And that's probably wasn't his intention, but that's what happened. And you see that's what like they carried with them. Bumi and Kaya brought that with them. And I'm sure Bumi felt it worse because he couldn't bend at all.
this is going to be kind of R-rated, but it's just a thought. Katara, she can water bend anything, right? Anything that's a liquid.
I don't like where you're going with this.
I'm just saying, like, why wouldn't they just make more fucking airbenders, Like, she could have done it to, like, non-bending, like, people who
like just
obviously
surrogated people?
volunteered. Yeah, like, just surrogated people. Like, it just... I don't know. It's just me. Because putting all that pressure on Tenzin to, like, literally repopulate the, like, air nomads is kind of unfair. I mean, it really took away his life choices. If you
they
think
really
about
did
it.
Put all their eggs in one basket because what happens if Tenzin was infertile? Like, there we go. Like, that's the end of the air nomads right there, and no one could do anything about it.
Or somebody castrated him. Like, just.
All right, that was extreme. Really
Hey, there's a lot of things that happen whenever you're bending. Lynn's pissed off. She can metal bend. I'm sure that.
I'm so surprised she didn't castrate him. I'm so surprised.
Push comes to shove, I feel like Lynn would castrate somebody.
I could see her doing that. And the fact that she was into Tenzin, of all people, like Tenzin? Get out of here. Like, Zuko's daughter is right there. Kaya is right there. And she picked Tenzin? Tenzin, exactly. Who left her for a younger, like, random bitch? Are you serious? Like, ugh. And, like, that's what almost convinces me that she absolutely is straight, because only a straight woman would be fucked over so bad.
Yeah, only a straight woman would choose that fate.
That would only ever happen. I'm just like baffled by this. I have a lot of feelings about that. I feel like it happened to me personally. That's how strongly I feel about Tenzin leaving Lin to date Pema. Like, Pema's nice and all, but like the girl was really out of line deciding to confess her feelings to someone that was in a relationship.
And she definitely got us started making them babies, honestly. She was like, yeah, I'm down if you're down. And he's like, well, I gotta do what I gotta do. It's my duty. Sorry, Lynn.
I kind of do feel bad for him because, like, because Aang brought it upon himself to repopulate the air nomads, he kind of left all that on his only airbending kid once he died. Because it's just, and that kind of didn't give Tenzin a choice. Even if he wanted to be with Lin, he needed to have another wife that wanted to have kids.
Yeah, and we know that, Tenzin was very well developed as an airbender from Aang. He got his tattoos and everything. I'm just saying within that span of time, he couldn't have had more kids. Like, they just stopped at Tenzin after they got one. They're like, all right, we're good.
I really think that they were just over having kids. They didn't want, well, I think Katara didn't want to have any more kids. But that actually brings me to a point. Unpopular opinion. I think Tenzin was probably just an averagely skilled airbender. And I can defend this because Jinora, who actually is incredibly skilled, could go into the spirit world at just her young age of, how old is she, like maybe 12? But
yeah, I think she
Tenzin,
was anywhere around that age.
a full-grown adult, couldn't. And he was a master, but how did he get his mastery if he couldn't do that part?
Maybe it wasn't like you needed to be able to like astral project yourself. It was just more or less like meditation and stuff and feeling the spiritual world around you, but not necessarily going into it. Because I'm sure that if he had entered the spirit world with Aang, that would have been like a whole story on itself.
True. But then that brings in Zaheer, who I have a lot of thoughts on Zaheer.
Me too.
Zaheer, okay. He is actually an airbending master. And I know that's a big statement considering that he had like probably had airbending for maybe like a month or so. But he could go into the spirit world with only a month of practice of airbending. He took on an airbending master and really had Tenzin on the ropes.
So, he really did study a lot of like, since we know he was captured after he tried to abduct Korra and he had no bending at that time.
Yeah.
What we can assume about him is that he went into that cell with all the knowledge that he currently has, and that I believe he was like pretty much a master of all bending techniques. Like maybe he studied it in order to counterbalance them with his own fighting skills, since he doesn't have any bending abilities, like being able to project what your opponent is about to do with their bending with just their movements. And then the fact that he was really well studied on like Guru Ligma, I believe is how you say his name.
I think, is it Lahim?
Maybe it is Lahima.
I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
So he really was like quoting him and going over like pretty much all of these philosophies that he had throughout his time on the show. And the fact that he was able to achieve flight, that really was something that nobody had seen ever during that time. They had heard about it probably in old stories if they had studied airbending culture that well. Yeah. But besides that, I just think that he was overall a master of all bending, and he just really used it to his advantage. And as soon as he felt that shift in the spiritual world, because all he could do in that jail cell is probably meditate, right?
Yeah.
And so he probably felt the harmonic convergence happening, and as soon as he had it, he probably was testing its abilities as soon as he could, because those guards only come around, I think, every week or so.
I think they said every 3 weeks.
Every 3 weeks, just to give them food. So it's like he had enough time to really feel out what the harmonic convergence did to him. But a lot of people also point out his facial features and the fact that he is pale with similar color eyes to most air nomads. So we see the same like air nomadic features in Zaheer, but we also see them in Tylee as well, in just her attitude and how she chi blocks and jumps around effortlessly. And so a lot of people always are like, I think, you know, if one parent was an air nomad and they came and assimilated and started a family and their kids weren't like air nomads or they never taught them how to like bend, I think that that's what may have caused so many air benders to arise from harmonic convergence, just because they had it within their like bloodline. And the Avatar world feels imbalanced in such a unique way, and so it probably felt there was a lack of airbenders, and so through energy bending of the like harmonic convergence, it probably just unlocked that ability for them that they had within their bloodline.
Like I actually really do agree with that theory. I really think that could work. Or I think that is a really good explanation for what happened.
We know that Boomy didn't have any airbending capabilities, and he was born to one airbending parent, and the other one is a waterbending parent. But one of her parents is a non-bender. Well, both of them are non-benders. Yeah, so it just makes sense that maybe it was just there that needed to be pulled out, since that there was such a lack of airbenders. I think it would have been the same thing if it had happened to the water tribe as well.
Agreed, honestly.
So it's just the Avatar universe setting itself in balance again.
And there was something else I wanted to mention about Zaheer. So I never said who my favorite villain was, but my least favorite villain of the Legend of Korra universe was Zaheer. Because even though I genuinely believe he was an airbending master, I feel like his backstory makes absolutely zero sense. The only explanation that they really gave for why he was so good at air nomad stuff was that he like read a lot of books and researched them like heavily. And I'm just like, you telling me you became honestly an airbending master by reading books. That's how you were able to take on an actual master, by reading books. You possessed airbending for maybe a month, but you got this good by reading books. And I'm just supposed to accept that.
Yeah, Aang and Katara, they stole those waterbending scripts from those pirates that one episode and just like randomly started like waterbending fairly well.
Yeah, but that's people that could actually waterbend, so they could like watch and practice and all. But like he literally couldn't even practice. He just read it and committed it to memory. That's it.
Well, they're based off of like true fighting styles, and so maybe he was just doing the movement.
He was just cosplaying.
Yeah, he
was just like, cosplaying airbender culture.
He was freestyle dancing.
He was freestyle dancing, and then like he just became a master. Because I honestly feel comfortable giving him that title. You can go into the spirit world, you can fly. You took on an airbending master, and really he could have won. Even if like the others didn't, like the other Red Lotus members didn't get involved, I really think Zaheer could have won.
But he also really didn't have anything holding him back after his girlfriend kind of combusted her head. You know, so at the same time, he felt he had a purpose, like
he did
in the Red Lotus. And so of course he's going to like, you know, be like, I gotta finish this so that none of the Red Lotus died in vain, you know?
Like his story is really sad. He's my least favorite villain, but like it's his story is really sad to me. But my favorite villain is the hot one. Like Kuvira, she's my
Kavir.
favorite. She's hot as hell. Like what am I supposed to do? Like I just look at her. She's hot and like she's kind of mean, but and I don't agree with anything she did, but she was really pretty.
She was very smart, honestly.
She was
Like
smart. She was
intimidating.
pretty, intimidating. I loved that bitch. She was
Woman
horrible.
would walk towards you if you were like, you know, uh, if you were trying to stand up against her. She, even though she would be smaller than some of these people she was walking up against, you could see them like kind of shrink back. She was radiating big dick
She
energy,
had
you
a
know,
huge dick. She had a
schlong,
huge proverbial penis.
schlonging.
Like
No, she probably did
huge.
on that robot, bro. Like,
Oh my god. Oh my god, Taylor. Like she had a huge dick energy. Like I loved her. Like honestly, Unalaq, he was just an asshole. He was skilled at spirit bending, an asshole. Fuck that guy. But Kuvira, she could back it up. Like she could back up her assholiness with like skill as well as beauty. She was beautiful.
she was
Like why
running
did
a whole
they
dictatorship, like without
she was a
anybody even
whole fascist
questioning it.
dictator, but she looked good doing it. But did she look good doing it or not?
She did. She was honestly. I wish that they had given her like more fits, you know, uh, because whenever she shows up, she's just usually in her like little. Did she consider herself a general? Like she
She's
was
just
going
the great
around.
uniter. Like she was just called the great uniter.
You see, whenever you give yourself titles like that, it seems a little bit narcissistic, if you ask
She
me.
she absolutely was a huge narcissist. I have not read the comics yet, and I think she does appear in them. And I'm just like, can we get a redemption arc for Kuvira, please? Because I think she could really do with one.
I think that she would honestly want to have a redemption arc too, because at the end, whenever she's like, "Why did you let me live? Like, why did you save me?" Like,
I
she
think,
wanted to die in the glory of the fire. She just
yeah,
wanted to go out. She's like, I can't live with this. I like enslaved so many Earth Kingdom people.
like yeah. She can't really bounce back from that. But I think she deserved a redemption arc personally. Is it because I think she's pretty and I would like to see her be a good person? Yes.
Is it because she has a well placed mole? Yes.
Yes. Is it completely for superficial reasons that I do want to see her be a good person? Absolutely. But I still want to see it.
I
At
just
least I'm self-aware.
I just want her to teach me how to Dutch braid.
Like she was just so why did they animate her to be so attractive?
Because they wanted us to love hating her. Like
Ugh,
we weren't like, you know, like people who they make to be in a way very charming, very scary, very sexy, but you know that they're the bad guy and you just can't help but love them. You're like,
it's
damn.
true. It's true. Damn. She was
I wish that
beautiful.
they had honestly made General Iroh the second like a bad guy just so we could have seen him more.
Like the fact that you're absolutely right, that's the only way we would have seen more of him. I wanted him to appear in every other episode, if not every
Oh, did you
episode.
hear what's going down in the fucking Earth Kingdom? And he's like, yeah, we should stay out of that.
No, don't stay out of it. Be very much inside of it. Get involved. Like do something. I want to see you on screen.
Anybody else like what?
But actually, speaking
Like,
of characters that deserved a redemption arc, I really think it would have been interesting to see Azula get one. I don't think she ever got one in the comics, but I think it would have been really interesting to see her get a redemption arc because I think if she had like a few good trips with Zuko and had like an Uncle Iroh type with her, she could have seen the error in her ways and like evolved as a person.
yeah, I think she was only like 14 or something. We all have high hormones at that age.
Like So who hasn't tried to commit murder at 14?
Yeah, she was a homicidal maniac.
She was a lot. She was a lot at 14.
But
A
at the
lot.
same time, she was also faced with like the perfectionist. She saw what happened to like Zuko. Of course, she was always very like taunting of him. But
Mm-hmm.
if you think like my older sister and my little sister both taunt me even to this day, they like egg me on. And so sometimes I see it more or less like, that was just the position she was put in, that was their dynamic, and that's the way she kind of stayed latched on, because she was still considered in her own mind to be within her father's grace, because she wanted to help him. She wanted to be like, yeah, we're gonna do this together, right? And he's like, no, you'll be the Fire Lord, and I'm going to be the Phoenix King, okay? And she was like, what the fuck is this? You didn't talk to me about the plan.
Like,
I did all this fucking work. I took down Bossing Say, and you're like, cool, thanks, kiddo.
cool, thanks, kid. You're
Hope
not
you enjoy
wrong.
your inauguration into nothingness.
Like, you're not wrong. Oh
Why you
God.
gotta say it like that?
Like, I think the only people in this series that did deserve a redemption arc would be those two. Well, other than the people that did get redemption arcs.
I'm
Her, yeah, go ahead.
just General Zhao, like he even got his own "What Happened to Him" story. He's in the
Yeah.
mist. Like,
And actually, someone did mention this in my comments. They wanted to know what I thought happened to Sokka and Suki. And I'm gonna be real frank with you guys. I'm gonna be real frank. The reason why we didn't learn what happened to them is because it had absolutely no value to the story at all. It had nothing to do with the story. And I know it hurts because we love these characters and we want to know what happens to them, but it wasn't their story. Like, the Legend of Korra was supposed to be about like Korra's journey, and
not
up and not it didn't have anything to do with the past gang. So whoever appeared and actually helped Korra move along in her story, they were relevant. So of course that means Katara, Aang, Toph, and Zuko, they were all relevant to Korra's story. But unfortunately, Sokka and Suki weren't. So we don't get to know what happens to them because
and
it's irrelevant to the story.
just think about it. They were 16. How many people did you date whenever you were 16?
Yeah.
You thought it was like the best thing ever.
What
You
I
know?
personally think happened to Sokka and Suki, I think that Sokka and Suki probably like broke up when they were like maybe 18. And then they went on to, I think maybe Suki went on to marry someone else. And then Sokka just like, maybe he met with many different people. Like, I don't think he necessarily settled down because maybe he didn't want to have kids. We just have to accept the fact that there's the possibility is Sokka didn't want to have children, so he didn't.
Yeah, a lot of people like say due to the comics, like having the Kyoshi warriors stationed at um in the Fire Nation with
Mm-hmm.
Zuko, and the fact that like Suki and Zuko start to form like this bond together, as like she's his bodyguard and she's around him. She gets to see him, in his times of like weakness and stress and whatever.
I would love
It's
it if
totally
Suki is
if
actually the
it
mother of Izumi, his daughter. I would love it. I
because
would
they
love
don't
that.
name her, and that's what I think would make the most sense in my mind, because they were together, they were there. Also, Azumi, she looks to be a lot older. I'm not sure if it's just because of her hair color, but she looks a lot older than Tenzin. So I'm just
I feel like
saying, just
I feel like they all look to be around the same age.
maybe they had a pregnancy pack.
Like, all of their kids look to be around the same age, honestly, if you look at them. The only person that looks like noticeably older is Boomy.
Yeah, Boomy is the oldest because I forget Kaya,
Yeah,
right? That's his sister's name. Kaya's the second born one, and
Tenzin's the
she has
youngest.
she has like gray hair though. She was like they gave all the women gray hair, and they were like, yeah, the boys get to have their brownie gray hair. I'm like, oh, yeah. Definitely not the way that would work, but go off.
Someone feels personally attacked by this.
I'm like, not hating on like like Suyin or Lin, but if they had made them like salt and peppery, maybe they wouldn't have been perceived as attractive. So they were like, just make their hair silver. It'll be cool.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would not have been mad if Suki and Suki and Zuko actually had Azumi together. I wouldn't be mad because like we see with like Korra's team avatar that you can date within the group and everyone's kind of okay with it after a while.
Yeah, after hopping around a few times.
Yeah, after hopping around a few times, you guys kind of just work it out. So in my mind, personally, I feel like Sokka went on to maybe not get married because he didn't want to and he didn't want to have kids, so he didn't. And Suki ended up having a child with Zuko, and that's Izumi. That's what I want to happen because I do not like Mei and Zuko together. I will go on record saying that.
Yeah, they're just in such different places afterwards because Sokka is in Republic City helping Aang
Mhm.
build it up to what it needs to be. He was a councilman there. And the Fire Nation is not in the Earth Kingdom, despite what people think. And so it's quite a hop, skip, and a boat away. So they're very long distance, probably
Yeah.
going quite a while without talking. And then, Suki's just stuck there with this steamboat Zuko. So what else is she supposed to do?
Like I really don't think it's it's not that bad of an idea that they didn't end up together because what is the obsession with wanting people that knew each other as children to just be together forever? Like I know
Just
so a
because
lot of
trauma
us really
bond.
want to have that like childhood friends to lovers like mental, I don't know, fan fiction going on, but like if I had to marry someone I knew when I was 12 or 14, I would cry. I would cry. I don't want to marry any of those people.
I think the whole thing with Aang and Katara is more or less like the status of it because it's like she always wanted the Avatar to come back. Whatever, he's there. He defeated the Fire Lord by taking away his bending, but it's like if the Avatar is one of your choices, are you going to say no? Like, are you going to be like, no, sorry, you're not Jet. Like, I just can't move on.
Not Jet. Don't bring Jet into this. Like,
I just
okay.
had to bring up his name.
Okay, now that you mentioned Jet, like I did make a video about like me thinking, well, us thinking that Noah
No
Centineo,
centipede.
Noah Centimeter, Noah Centineo is going to be cast as Jet in the live action. And I don't want that, but if it had to happen, wouldn't it be even a little bit satisfying to see him get his shit rocked? Just a little bit satisfying.
It would, and I want it to be a clear, precise death, not just like them walking the ember.
You want to see him have an
Did
on-screen
Jet
death.
die?
I think that's
Right.
but I just think watching him get his shit rocked would just be just a little bit satisfying.
No, definitely, especially because they just put him in everything so often. He always has to be like the main character. I just wanted to see like a cameo, a few seconds, then it's like, all right,
Boulder.
you're out of here.
Like no hate to Noah Centineo. But I really think seeing him get hit by a rock would just make a lot of us feel a little bit better.
And I want what's her name? Millie Bobby Brown to play Smeller Bee.
I think that's way too much star power, well, quote unquote star power for like one group. Like I was thinking about that really, like, oh, what if they cast Millie Bobby Brown to be Smeller Bee? But then that'd be super distracting considering the fact that more than likely we're gonna get nobodies to play, not nobodies, but like unknown actors to play like the gang. And could you imagine how distracting it would be to have like these people we don't know and then like these people we've seen everywhere in the same scene?
Dude, especially if they cast like majority Asian and then it's just like Millie Bobby Brown.
Then just like these random cameos of famous white people.
Scarlett
I feel like that would be
Johansson as
incredibly
Uncle
distracting. Okay, let me get to some of the questions that people have asked me in my comments.
Alrighty.
Okay. So Avi_107 asks, thoughts on Korrasami, mostly about their development and what you think about them together in general with like dynamic wise. So what do you think?
So for me, I felt like a lot of their intimacy was very off screen, very put it together yourself.
Sorry, that was my dog.
For the most part, all they really do in the 3 years that Korra is away is write each other. What is in the contents of these letters, we may never know.
That's low-key not even our business.
But like, I'm just saying, I think that they're like definitely a good fighting duo, and I just wish that they had kind of like, you know, done a little bit more like little subtle hints dropped in besides, oh yeah, we're just gal pals being gal pals, and then being like, yeah, you want to go on this vacation with me to the spirit world last episode and play the same ass music that Katara kissed Aang to on the last episode? Yeah, let's drop hints like that. But like, I do really like them together. I heard that they get more into it in the comics, so.
Yeah, I did hear that as well. Me personally, I am just terrible at reading romance in general. So I was just like, yes, friendship. This is what friendship is. So, but that was like literally me with
intimate.
That was me with like everyone's relationships in the show. I'm just like, yes, this is friendship. Like, Opal and Bolin, friendship. This is like a brand new friendship. Look at this. Like Mako and Korra, I'm just like, look at these good friends. And then they like kissed and I'm just like, oh, that came out of nowhere. Did it? So I'm not like the best person for that.
Yeah.
So I like their dynamic because they were the only pair that like really didn't get on each other's nerves. Like Korra and Bolin, they didn't really work well together in relationship wise because they were just like honestly on two different maturity levels. Mako and Korra just didn't get along in like the communication avenue that like were really counted. But Asami and Korra really did mesh well with communication and apparently chemistry as well. Like they did have chemistry. Okay. Chaotic Good Goose says, please do an in-depth study of who was the bigger himbo, Korra or Bolin. Also, maybe something about Rise of Kyoshi because that book slaps. I can't talk about Rise of Kyoshi because I haven't read it. I don't have money. The bigger himbo, Korra or Bolin?
Definitely Bolin.
Definitely Bolin. Definitely Bolin.
Man like, has nothing in his head.
There's one P brain.
He's just there to be hunky, but also coolest.
Like there's ain't nothing going on up there. Bolin is the bigger himbo, hands down. Someone else had a really interesting question. Where'd it go? Isabella Triplet says, I think Hama is the reason the Fire Nation killed Katara's mom and not just taken her as a prisoner because they didn't want her to escape or bloodbend. I understand where she's coming from.
But they were just taking people out.
That's really what it came to.
Well, Hama is the same age as Gran.
Oh, she is?
I think they went into that, like, that they were the same age because she wasn't the same age as Katara's mom, and she was a lot older, so I believe she was around the same age as Gran. and so that's about a whole generation. Because she was still very young in the
You're absolutely
prison,
right. I forgot about that.
and
So
I'm not
that at
even
that
sure.
point, the Fire Nation was aware that bloodbenders were a thing.
Yeah, I think that Katara did mention that they would come every so often, up to the well, down to the Southern Water Tribe, and each time it was worse and worse and worse. Like they were no stranger to like the Fire Nation ships just showing up.
True. That's true. I forgot. Because they think they probably just wanted to take any new blood-borne waterbender because they saw how dangerous they were.
Well, there weren't very many like in between ages.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember looking, there was very little
Yeah.
children, and it was very awkward because it was just like really Katara and Sokka that were
Like,
there
they were
their
like the
own
oldest in
age.
the village, like out
Yeah,
of the children.
and I think that I didn't really see a lot of like women who could be around Katara's mom age. I did see like older women, and so maybe they weren't as much of a threat, a conceived threat. Because again, it was 100 years, so maybe they were thinking, oh, the Avatar must be around this age or something.
Also, someone else asked me, I can't find the comment right now, but they asked to talk about like what is it? Here it is. I'm Batman 33, the whitewashing of characters in the Legend of Korra. So this one, I don't really have as many thoughts on as people would think I do, because like I see why people think that they whitewash Tenzin, but the thing is, mixed kids don't necessarily look like a perfect mix of both parents. It's quite like it's not an uncommon thing for a mixed child to come out looking exactly like one or the other. But I do notice that like the features of adults did change style wise from like the original series to Legend of Korra. That they do have a lot more like European-esque features. But even with the original art style, like so many people already thought that they looked white.
Yeah, I agree that a lot of people, I thought growing up, that they were white because I was like 6, but I don't even
It's
know whenever
fine.
it
Like
came
when
out.
I was little, I thought Katara was black because she was brown. And then
You
I
know
was just
what?
like, oh, that's not at all true.
The only reason I even thought that they might be Asian was literally just the intro and like the architecture that they had. And I was like, oh, okay, I went with it.
Like
Because,
I wasn't really reading any of the characters as like white. I just read
mhm.
Katara as black because I was like, ah, dark skin, girl, black girl.
Well,
That's it.
that's what they do in anime as well. They just make like, they don't really talk about it. They don't really be like, you're black. In anime, it's just like that character is that race and it just is.
It
Um,
depends. A lot of the times, like if they're actually black, like the show will tell you without like actually telling you. Sometimes they do just have them be like Yaru characters, which are just like characters that have like if they're girls, they're like a specific kind of what is that word in English? Hold on. I have to go through like I have to translate it. Oh my god. I can't think of the English word. But basically like Gyaru culture is just like having really tanned skin to kind of like combat the whole like beauty standard of like white skin and amongst a bunch of other things. Like it's supposed to be a thing in and of itself, like having dark skin and acting a certain way. So like certain female characters are Gyarus. They're not supposed to be read as black, but there are characters that are actually like black and are read as black, and the characters that are like European or just white in general are also written to be white. Like they will write their noses in. Like if you see the animations, they have like really sharp noses for no reason. Or they speak Japanese really poorly, which is like, oh, this is a caricature of a white person. But that's like completely off topic, I guess. Is it?
yes,
This is
period.
tangent. That's what the show is.
That's
This is
not
what this
even this
whole thing's about.
episode. We can have that another time. By the way, I also do like iZombie, just putting that out there.
Oh my god. Like, shout out to Peter, #1 iZombie fan. I have not watched iZombie. We are on another tangent, by the way. That's what this whole thing is. Um, if I do watch iZombie, I will make an iZombie episode. So I guess you will be returning for that. And I will ask Peter formally if he does want to be on the iZombie episode. Peter, if you're listening to this, like, let me know.
Exactly. Black Canary 1 said if they did another show based on the Avatar series, what do you think it would look like?
Ooh, okay. I have thoughts on this. I'm just skipping forward to the airbending, the next airbender one, because I don't really have thoughts on earthbending or firebending, but another airbending avatar. See, that one, I have thoughts. With how this, like, universe is going, they probably won't need an avatar by that time, but assuming that they still do, I want them to be from one of those families that declined to join the new Air Nation, so that they grew up in like completely different a different environment altogether. So they probably grew up in either like the United Republic or maybe even like the Earth Kingdom. That's all I know it as. So they should be coming from one of those kingdoms, and they were raised around earthbenders, so they like airbend like an earthbender, and they don't have the same like they're not raised under the same restrictions as the air nomads, so they have different morals and values. And I think that would just be so much more interesting.
Yeah, well, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, we see, you know, whenever they're trying to recruit different airbenders, a lot of people did decline, and it's not like they were just taking away their bending. They just kind of like left them there.
Yeah.
And so it's totally possible that, like, because the cycle goes to who it chooses, you know, like it's not going to be like, oh yes, because you have learned everything, like during your time, your child will be like, you know, selected as the next like airbending avatar. It's really just like, all right, you seem like a good choice, plop.
Yeah. I think it'd be way more interesting because they aren't held to the same moral standards as the air nomads, so they would avatar a lot differently. Why did I turn it into a verb? But I did. They would avatar a lot differently than an air nomad would, because we've seen how like an air nomad trying to be like an avatar and an air nomad doesn't really work very well. And it wasn't just Aang. It wasn't just Aang, it was also Yang Chen, who they both had difficulties being air nomads and being avatars. And personally, I do not think that the role of the avatar can be done super well by a pacifist, because, well, actually, maybe it depends on what is needed from them at the time. In a peaceful universe,
could be very diplomatic, you know, if that were the case. But
yes,
it just depends who the boss at the time is.
Exactly. Like, it depends on what the conflict is. In the time of a war, like Aang's, we didn't need a pacifist in power. Like, that was a real struggle.
And even then, if he had, you know, been like, thank you for that option, great sea turtle.
Great like, sea turtle, no.
I don't know.
The lion turtle.
Like little lion turtle.
Like, I get the fact that he was 12. I get that. I do get it. I'm just saying, if I was in his situation at 12, I would have done what needed to be done.
I would have yeeted.
I would have done what needed to be done. But that's because I'm not a monk. Like, the whole thing is, like, I really don't even know if this is a debate, but I'm almost absolutely positive that even if he had not gotten energy bending. If he hadn't gotten energy bending, I still don't think he would have killed him. I think someone else would have had to do the job. I think he would have choked. I don't think he had it in him.
Death.
I really don't think he had it in him to kill Ozai, even if he had to. I don't think he personally could have done it, because it's just not in him as a person. Like, he is not someone that can put aside his beliefs to do it. I think someone else would have had to step in to do it.
Iroh. Could you imagine if Iroh had come and literally stopped his brother?
Like,
that
I
would have
think
been beautiful.
that would have had to happen if they didn't have energy bending, because Aang wouldn't have been able to bring himself to do it. Because the only times we've seen him have murderous tendencies is if something happens to, like, Appa.
Yeah.
And who else? Like, someone else got hurt and he almost killed, but like on a killing spree. Who was that? The only one that comes
It
to
was
mind
Monkey
immediately.
Yasu.
Yes,
Monkey
when
Yasu.
he found out Monkey
And
Yasu was dead.
it was like literally with Katara and Sokka too, and he was like, "I don't give a fuck."
He almost ended up getting them killed.
Yeah, she was like, "Come down, you're scaring us."
But the only time we've seen him like actually get ready to end someone's life was with Appa being stolen, and he was gonna take those sandbenders out. He really was. If Katara had not stepped in, I think they would have been dead. So I think maybe we should start with final thoughts. So of the, I think I don't know actually your thoughts, but which one do you prefer? Do you prefer ATLA or Legend of Korra?
I really think that I like Legend of Korra better. I think that the only reason why a lot of people prefer Avatar: The Last Airbender over Legend of Korra is genuinely just because they don't want to have a female Avatar and they hate to see it, and they're just so connected to like the OG team. But the way that the writers wrote Legend of Korra was so that each book kind of closed itself, because they didn't know if they were going to get another book or what. They actually got an additional book, so that should tell you something about the writing that had to go into it and the character development, because there was quite a bit of like layers of trauma that we did get to witness. I definitely cried a lot more watching the Legend of Korra than I ever did watching Avatar: The Last Airbender, just because it was so emotionally impactful, and it was a little bit more mature than just like, you know, some 12-year-old with like a group of 14-year-olds going around.
Yeah, I definitely agree about like the maturity level. I think personally, my inner child loves ATLA, but like my adult self prefers Legend of Korra, just because it's a lot more, it's a grown up. It's like a grown up version. And I wasn't expecting it to be like a children's show, because it was not really a children's show. That's why they stopped airing it on a children's network. Like, it was a lot too mature for its target audience, I guess. Well, for Nickelodeon's target audience, but the people that grew up with ATLA were old enough to watch The Legend of Korra and like relate to it more. With ATLA, I really feel like I like the writing of the side characters so much more than the Legend of Korra side characters, because obviously like they had room to have depth because they had 3 seasons greenlit from the beginning, but I couldn't like relate to like the original Avatar that much. I couldn't relate to Aang because I just didn't understand him. Like that, the thing that like lost me with Aang is that he didn't want to be the Avatar. Like that part.
Yeah, he just ran away.
As a kid, I like never could understand that part. I'm like, but why wouldn't you want to be the Avatar? And like the only explanation was that like he wanted to be a monk, and I'm just like, why would you want to be a monk and not the Avatar? Like that's something that like a child had never understood. And like even as an adult, like I understand that he wanted to be a monk and not the Avatar, but I couldn't relate to that, because I think all of us watching it would want to be an airbender, an earthbender, the Avatar, a waterbender, a firebender. I don't know how many people watch the show and be like, I actually would just want to be a non-bender.
Yeah, I want to be equalist.
Like, I don't know how many people were watching it with that mindset. So like, it's something I never could completely like understand. I was like forced to empathize with it because he was the main character, but I just saw myself in all of the other characters, and so I like them a lot more. Like the team avatar that I recognize and like I vibe the most with is obviously the original because I love Toph, I love Katara, I love Sokka and Zuko. But the avatar I vibe the most with is Korra because like she is someone I can understand. Like I understand and I empathize, I can relate to her because she goes through a lot of struggles that like me as a young adult, I as a young adult go through and probably will go through in the future. But one thing with The Legend of Korra is that the side characters didn't have as much development as they did as the side characters in ATLA.
So, do you think that Mako prostituted himself? Yes or no?
I don't think Mako prostituted himself.
I think he was willing to do anything so that they could eat.
I don't think he prostituted himself. I think he probably did some gang activities. I don't hate Mako. A lot of people are on like the Mako hate train. I don't hate him.
No, he was just doing whatever position he got put in, really.
He did. He was doing his thing. Like he tried his best. It wasn't very good, but he did try his best. Like just like how Bolin tried his best in whatever he did. Was it very good some of the times? No, it wasn't. But did he try? He did.
Yeah, honestly, I think, like I said, I think that Mako is somebody who would purposely prostitute himself. Bolin would accidentally prostitute himself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like Mako would go in with the full intention to prostitute himself, and then Bolin would be like, "This is prostitution?"
He'd be like, "I thought you guys just wanted to wrestle."
Taylor!
He's like, "Sure, I'll be an actor."
It's like, I thought we were acting. It's like, I mean, I guess, but not that kind of actor. I never asked you, what is your favorite season of Legend of Korra?
Book 3 with Zaheer in it. She, you know, at the very end, whenever she got poisoned and stuff, and Jinora was getting her tattoos, and it just closed out that season. Like, I was a wreck.
That made me cry. That made me cry. I was just like, oh my God. Like, it's so happy, but so sad at the same time. Like, that did wreck me. I think, damn, like, my favorite season, I think I really have to go with season 1. I really liked season 1. Like, I liked that it was, like, I liked the not evolve. Let me start over. I don't know how to speak. I like the evolution from, like, the ATLA universe to the Legend of Korra universe. I actually really enjoyed it to see how like the civilization that our old friends have built had evolved into what we see now. Like I really liked that. And that's what we got in the first season. And also I was thinking about this theory, but I think that the vines that were in Republic City are somehow connected to the swamp vines in like the swamp. I don't even remember what they called it. Like, let's just call it the swamp, though.
I just thought it was weird that Toph said she could see through the vine.
Yeah, so that means Toph was like literally watching everything happen, like from season 2 to season 3, and she did nothing. Nothing.
She's like, that's none of my business. That's the OG team of Avatar, though. They're like, no, it's really just not my business. They didn't even come get me, so like I can sit this one out.
Wait, not season 2. I mean the end of season 2 to like all of season 4. She could sense all of that and was just like, this ain't none of my business.
She literally showed up like last minute. She was like, let's take it out on a fucking robot.
And even then she was just like, actually, that's not my job. That's your guys' job.
She's like, I'm old. My back hurts. Don't tell anybody.
She's just like, I just stepped in to like save my family, but like this is actually the young people's jobs. Like we did our job and as young people, so it's now your job. And I'm just like, hold on, old lady. I would have taken your word for that if you hadn't already been on board to giving up your life for a country when you were 12. Like that was her whole thing. She was okay with laying down her life at age 12. And now it's the end of your life and you're just like, no.
She's like, I really just want to go back to my swamp. Actually, it's just a lot of different things that I find extremely interesting, and it's so easy to honestly go on a tangent about Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, just because they give you so much material, and they do use like body language very heavily as well. So like you can see like the faces change, and you know the scenery also changes a lot of the time with the different lightings and how they choose to bend in those scenes. Like they be putting in a lot of effort in the graphics team to really pull that emotion through.
So do you have any closing remarks?
I would just like to say to everybody who listened in on this probably extremely long podcast, thank you for listening. We would love to hear your ideas. Take everything with a grain of salt, because if it's not canon, then we're entitled to our own opinions and ideas on certain characters, because everybody interprets different personalities in their own unique ways.
And I agree with that. I agree with that as well. And like a lot of this is obviously our opinions, so like feel free to disagree.
Or even fact check us. If you have the fact and can pull it up, do it. Tell us what episode, what time, and we will watch it together and be like, oh yeah, you know.
Like obviously our memories aren't the freshest, because I like rewatched Avatar like a couple months ago, and I rewatched The Legend of Korra like maybe a month ago. So I don't even know what I had for breakfast yesterday. So my memory's not going to be perfect. We also deeply love all of these characters, even the ones that are our least favorites. Like we still love them. They just aren't high on our list of favorites.
Milo.
We don't hate them. Like Milo, no comment. No comment.
Warlord.
Like I like Milo enough. Like enough
not to eat him. Not to the void.
I don't hate him, but I would never want to be in a room with him, ever. Do not put me in a room with that child. I don't have the patience. That's all I will say on Milo.
Yeah, it was amazing talking with you, because I always watch your TikToks and I hear your voice so often, but it's never been like such a one-on-one thing. But whenever I read our messages together, I read it in your voice. And so it's
like Taylor. Aww.
Yeah. It's like I never talk on my platform. So
it's true, you never talk on your platform. But
unless I'm saying something mean, unless I'm roasting the hell out of somebody. So
thank you so much for appearing on this episode of Tangent Taylor. We went through so many tangents. That's kind of what this whole thing is. It's impossible for me to stay on topic. That's why I have this podcast of me barely staying on topic. So thank you so much for participating. Stan Korra for, I said Korra. Stan Korra for clear skin. Stan Katara for clear skin. If you want to stand Aang, go for it. I won't stop you. But stand all the Avatar characters, except Milo. Maybe don't stand. I'm kidding.
Except the Cabbage Man.
Absolutely stand Nora, and that's the end of it. And Iki, sorry Iki, you're a middle child. Everyone forgets you.
Yeah, she got forgotten.
It's just stand these two shows. They're wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.